All right, everybody, welcome back to Of Stone and Clay. I'm your guest. I'm not your guest. I'm your host, Taylor Church. I'm here with Benjamin Francis. Actually, Dr. Francis.
Doctor.
Right, is that what we should be calling you?
If you want. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Francis is here. He's a friend of mine that I don't know super well, but we have a lot of friends in common, and we're here to get to know him a little bit, talk about his journey, talk about his life. I want to start off by saying we're going to be talking about some hot topics, some potentially controversial things, but the whole point of this episode, I wanted to explore Ben's life, what he's been through, what he's experienced, his opinions, and the point of this is not to make a statement, it's not to advocate one way or another of a lifestyle, of a religion. It's just to hear a story and to see what we can learn about the human condition. So Ben actually reached out to me, and I've known this for a little bit of time, but you recently kind of went public and said that you have same-sex attraction.
Yes.
And you have a girlfriend.
Yes.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And this has nothing to do with it, but you're a physicist.
I am. Yes.
Rarely do you have all three of those things.
Indeed.
Yeah, you're
kind of a unique combo, right?
Right, you're a bit of an anomaly. So, talk to me about, first of all, I want to talk about the genesis. At what point, and of course, I put on my Instagram story for those that were tuning in that the reason this is so interesting is because you are a religious guy, you're a Christian guy, part of the LDS church, and you've decided to basically, I don't know how you want to word it, but you don't wish to act on these desires or this attraction that you feel. Is that a good way of saying it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you say when you kind of came out publicly?
Yeah. So I just made this short Facebook post. I basically said like, hey y'all, like, just wanted to like share this thing. I experienced same-sex attraction. Like, it's not like a big deal or whatever, but like.
But it's also like a huge deal.
It's a thing.
Right,
Yeah.
it's a thing.
Yeah.
And what made you say like, okay, I've been keeping this to myself for a while, or you've had your close circle of friends, or maybe your family that have known. What made you decide, you know what, I want to just share it with everybody?
It's an idea that I've had like a few times in the past. I was always more hesitant though until like the first time I seriously considered it was actually like 3 years ago.
So how old are you, just for people's reference?
33.
33, okay.
33. So yeah, a few years ago I was thinking about it. I kind of like chatted with my mom about it, and she was like, now's a bad time, don't do it. was kind of what I heard. I don't know if that's exactly what she said.
Now's a bad time. It was just bad weather. Was it bad?
Yeah, you know, there was thunderstorms at the time. Like she stressed about.
She didn't want to add to the storm.
Flooding. You know, I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
Just kidding. Yeah, like anyway. So I kind of held off on the idea then, but then recently, like, the idea kind of came to mind, and I don't know if inspired is necessarily the right word, but I just kind of felt moved in that direction. Mm-hmm. So I like, kind of thought about what are the pros and cons.
Had it been weighing on you, or you just felt like this is the next step?
I kind of felt like this is the next step. Kind of the main thing that motivated me to like want to do it is I felt like all the reasons for not doing it were based on fear,
mm-hmm.
Which I've learned is not a good motivation for doing anything. But all of the reasons to do it were, it would help me, it would help people that I know, it would help people that I don't know, right?
Yeah.
I thought of all all these ways that it could be helpful
Mhm.
to me and others.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's
So basically, all the cons were just trivial, just fear-based.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. At what point in your life did you feel like, okay, I'm not like all the other dudes. Like I'm having different feelings than just the normal like heterosexual feelings. Do you feel like it was kind of from the get-go and you just took a while to understand it, or do you feel like it kind of came at you later in life?
So I guess what I'll say there is like so first of all, when I was in high school, I kind of just avoided the question of attraction altogether. I just didn't really like date that
Was
much.
it because you weren't like it didn't click for you, or you just knew there was something different, so you just avoided it?
So it wasn't that I was avoiding it because I sensed that there was necessarily anything different about me. It was more just like kind of my religious upbringing. Like I had this idea of like, you know, dating is for like finding someone to marry, and that's not something that I had in my head that I would be doing until after I served a mission for my church. And so in high school I was kind of like, I'm just not going to worry about dating until after I go on a mission.
Okay.
And so, you know, I kind of just like avoided the whole question, didn't really worry about it until after my mission. Until I went to college. Sorry, I'm getting my facts out of order. So after high school I went to college, and it was while I was in college that I actually started to really like conceptualize like some of the things that I was experiencing as attraction towards other guys.
Okay. And so now talk to me about your attraction or lack of attraction to women.
So
because you have, and we'll get more into this, but you have a girlfriend, so there's, you know, you would hope or assume that there's some level of attraction, or that there is an innate attraction but it's not as strong, or if it's just kind of supplemented with a male attraction. How does that work for you?
Yeah, so there's like different kinds of attraction, and they kind of manifest in different ways for, you know, for women and for men. Like with guys, like from the moment like my eyes land on a guy, there's like an immediate like attraction, like physical or visual attraction, right? Like, oh, that guy looks really attractive.
Yeah.
Right? With girls that doesn't happen. But with both genders, once I, you know, start getting to know the person, then I can be attracted to their personality and stuff.
Right.
And like with my girlfriend right now, and like the few times that I've dated other girls in the past, like as the relationship kind of develops more, then like the physical attraction starts to show up a little bit there as well. It's just not as
strong
present. Yeah.
Okay. How did you meet your girlfriend?
She and I are in the same ward.
Okay.
Congregation at church.
And did you at first view her as like a prospect for somebody to try and date, or was she just a friend and it kind of just happened out of that?
So yeah, when I first got into that ward, that was about a year ago, I was kind of in a phase where I wasn't really dating anybody, right?
Now, real quick, don't mean to interrupt you, but did you ever date guys, or was it more of just something you dealt with inside? Yeah,
more of something I just kind of was processing inside. Okay. I've never really had an interest. Well, that's not entirely true. I've had moments where
maybe it's
to think about,
maybe it's more of a fantasy,
the idea of dating guys and maybe curiosity in that direction, but I've never like actually dated anyone.
Is that just because to you knew it wouldn't lead anywhere, like that you wanted eventually? Like it'd be fun, it'd be exciting, but it wouldn't necessarily like.
Yeah, it wasn't really in line with, sort of the life goals or picture that I had for myself, right? Like, ever since I was small, I've had this picture of like when I get older, I want to like find a girl, get married, have a family, right?
Right.
That whole thing.
Okay. So, sorry, I cut you off earlier. You were saying how that relationship with your girlfriend kind of commenced.
Right. So, yeah. So at the time, like, at first when I met her, like, I wasn't really like in a mode of dating anyone. But like, I noticed her like almost immediately. She caught my attention.
Yeah.
And
physically?
No, intellectually, spiritually.
Yeah.
Like
just kind of her being, her aura.
Yeah, like what I remember was like a Sunday school class, and like her comments in Sunday school class just like resonated with me really deeply, and I was like, wow, this girl is like different than all the other girls, and so that caught my attention, and so she was kind of in the back of my mind for a while, and then it probably wasn't for another 6 months before I finally decided like to be dating, and then she was kind of like my first choice when I decided to like start dating people.
Awesome. And at what point did you? It's funny. You're to me it kind of sounds like, I feel like a lot of females are this way with guys, where they're like, yeah, at first I wasn't super attracted to them, but I was just drawn to their personality, and they're just less visual beings than guys usually. And of course they're attracted to them, but oftentimes you'll hear girls say like, yeah, like when we first started dating, I wasn't that attracted to him, but then I really became physically attracted to him later. Whereas I almost never hear guys say that. Am I right? It's just an interesting thing I've noticed over the years, and so it's interesting to have you kind of have the opposite. Almost like women do. You kind of, it's not that the attraction is impossible or isn't there at all. It just it's not as I don't know. It's not as impactful. It's not as like huge in the beginning. Yeah. So that's interesting. But so at what point did you decide to kind of let her in on this, I don't know if you want to call it secret, but just because I feel like that's a tough conversation to have with your girlfriend. Hey, like, listen, I care about you, I like you, but I also have these other interests and desires and whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so I mean, that's something for me that's kind of on my mind from the beginning, is like, when would be the right time. The funny thing was, she guessed before I actually told her.
Oh, really? You're like, should I be insulted or complimented?
Yeah, so like I don't remember how long it was, maybe about a month or so.
So how did she say that to you?
Yeah, so we like got together for like lunch or something. We were out on a lawn on campus, and she at first she was kind of like hinting at it, but not really like saying quite what it was, right?
Yeah, like she just knew something about you, or
yeah, like she was alluding to the fact that like there was something that she wanted to talk about or whatever, but like if I didn't want to talk about it, then like we don't have to go there, whatever. And I was like, just go ahead and say it, like let's just go ahead, you know. And so she was like, I think you have same-sex attraction, and I was like, yep.
Wow. Wow, that's I mean, hats off to your girl. That's first of all, an astute observation.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's I don't know, it's pretty audacious to just, or confident to like just not accuse somebody of it, but to just say like, hey, this is what I think. You know? And because if you're wrong, that can be that's a big wrong, you know. But so it sounds like that was pretty just. It ended up being pretty smooth for you guys, right? Or was there?
Yeah.
Did she have trouble? Did she have trouble with it? I guess she assumed it, but when it was really became true and real, did she struggle with it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't want to speak too much like for her, right?
Sure.
She can tell her own story, but
Yeah.
but from what she's told me, like it has been hard for her, because like I think she said like she kind of assumed like, oh well, then like he's probably not really interested in me, but then I kept on asking her out, and so she was like, you know, what's that about, right?
Right. This
like,
kid's gay, but he's persistent.
Yeah, like, and so yeah, so I mean, it's been challenging for her in different ways from what she's told me, you know, but and like, you know, some things about that like have been surprising to me. You know, I have no idea like honestly like what it's like for her.
Yeah, you've never been a woman trying to date a guy with same-sex attraction.
No. But on the whole, like she's been, what's the word I'm looking for? She's been really like good about it, you know, and like she's taken it really well, and I you know, we've had a few different conversations about it, and like just, you know, to understand each other better, and like and I don't know, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, you just, and I'm sure it would be maybe more difficult for her. Again, I'm not trying to speak for her, just kind of postulating, but I feel like it might be more difficult for her had you had like this extensive history, like being with guys, you know, because you've never really been intimate with a guy, correct? Right. Not that that's any of my business, but now it's everybody's business. So it's been more of a, I don't want to call it like a hypothetical, because it's like it's very real for you, but it's also never been acted on really, right? So that's I don't know, that she's got to find some solace in that, just because it's like, I don't know, she doesn't really have to feel jealous about other guys or anything, because that's not something you're seriously entertaining. It's just something that you feel, right? Do you feel like since you've started dating her, your same-sex attraction has waned at all, or if it's the exact same, it's just you can kind of forget about it, or I don't know, it's not on your mind as much?
No, yeah, it's the exact same.
It's the exact same, yeah.
Hasn't changed a bit so
Right.
far.
right. Well, and the thing is, like, I don't know, I feel like when a guy marries a girl or has a girlfriend, he doesn't stop being attracted to other women.
Yeah.
Even if he claims he does. It's just that he, at least hopefully, is so focused and fixed on this one that he doesn't, his desire to have other women or be with other women isn't really entertained. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's still just, like, for me, it's a fact. Like, if a woman is attracted to me, that's just a fact.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
she's just attractive.
Yeah, she's just attractive. It's like saying, like, that mountain is pretty. It's not like I want to, like, go be with that mountain.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's just, she's just attractive. And yeah, like, once you're in a committed relationship, you know, you still notice that attraction, but hopefully you don't notice, like, you don't have like prolonged notice, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
you kind of notice and just try to move on, right? Let it go.
So is it difficult for you to have basically this thing in your life that you plan to never act on? Does it feel like you're repressing a part of you, or that you are just like, you just have to bury that under the, under the rug for the rest of your life?
There, there's phases, I guess. Sometimes it's like, yeah, this isn't a big deal. Like,
Right.
it's just a thing. At the moment, I'm kind of going through a phase where, just in the past week or so, I've had like some questions surface, and it feels more like, okay, like, what does this mean? What is this all about? Like, what is...
Feels more existential.
Yeah, what does my life look like? Or like...
Just your identity.
Yeah, and part of that is like, just not even just myself, like kind of empathizing with others that have same-sex attraction. Like, what does the life picture look like for them?
Right.
Like,
and like, do you want to be part of like this community?
Yeah.
Like, do you do you identify? Do you feel like you're part of like the LGBTQ community, or do you just feel like, I mean, that's them, and maybe I'm kind of similar to them, but I'm not really part of that? How do you feel with that?
Yeah, so that's... I've never really felt like I resonate strongly. A lot of my experience with LGBTQ community, if we're going to call it that, is that they have an agenda.
Right.
And I don't resonate with having an agenda about whatever, like...
Yeah. It's more personal for you.
Yeah, I mean, I resonate with like having community and like having people that I can relate with,
Sure,
and I understand, but like, yeah, having like underlying agendas, or like,
it feels to me, and like it's almost like me being a straight white male, I'm not allowed to talk or have an opinion on anything, right? But but I feel like it's almost like a political movement.
Yeah, there's definitely that kind of a sense sometimes that I feel, and so yeah, like in a sense, I do feel like, these are my people, like I get them, right? And I hate speaking about them as like them, as if they and me are like separate, but
right. I mean, we're all just like humans, and you just like, you have some of the same characteristics as them, or same aspects.
Yeah, like there's things about their experience that I can understand because I've experienced it for myself, right? But
a lot of them can't relate with your experience at all because they feel like you should act on it, right?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not speaking for the masses. I'm just saying, I'm sure there are some people that almost like wouldn't like you in their community or as part of whatever, because you're like very religious and you don't have any agenda with the group. You just have your own personal beliefs, you have your own desires and attractions or whatever, but they're just, as a group, they're very outspoken. There's no denying that. Again, that's just facts. They're very outspoken, for better or worse. So yeah, how do you, I guess, what would be your response? And maybe you haven't had much of this communication. You live in an area that's probably not, crawling with people. I mean, you go 20 miles north and it's a different story. But what do you say to somebody in that community that says, like, don't you feel sexually repressed? Don't you feel oppressed by your religious dogma? Don't you feel like it's unnatural to not act on these feelings and these tendencies? What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, I would say no, I don't feel oppressed. Like, there's a lot of open questions, right? And I think I kind of feel like we're all still like, looking for the answers together. And maybe not everything's clear, but to me, for one thing, I don't see like being religious and faithful in my church as like being in conflict with having feelings of same-sex attraction. And I don't know, I'm open to different ideas of like how those two can be compatible. I think there's enough things that we don't know from both sides of the issue that there's still lots of room to like find compatibility and like I don't know, my experience like with my church is I've and I know that this isn't the same experience that like everybody has, but like people that I've talked to, like ecclesiastical leaders and friends or whatever, everybody's always been like supportive. Some people sometimes kind of have this expectation of like, well, if you have these feelings, then like, kind of your only option is this, and you'll be blessed for being faithful, but you kind of have to like stick to this particular path. And I'm not sure I'm convinced about everybody's ideas of like how people with same-sex attraction fit into like the religious
the
space,
question of like how do you either deal with it, quote unquote, or live with it, or whatever, because that's
like what kinds of behaviors are we going to consider acceptable in the religious sphere, right? There's differing ideas about that, and I'm not sure that we really know, for people like me who believe that like there is a God and that like he has a plan of joy for everyone, I don't think we know necessarily all the details of what that looks like for each person, and I forget where I was going with that, but
that's where you were going.
That's where I was going.
Do you feel like, because this is a question that's raised so much, and I think a lot of people kind of like in the Christian world, and then there's like, I guess the secular world, we'll say, kind of really butt heads on this point, where I think certain people believe or think strongly that people are either born with homosexual tendencies or not, right? That it either, is caused by environmental factors, or it kind of grows on you. I don't even know how to describe it. And I personally don't have a strong opinion one way or another. I'm open to both being correct or both being wrong. Like, I don't know. And I, of course, have no way to really relate about this subject with other people. And I have in my head, I have my ideas and what I probably think, but ultimately they don't really matter because I just feel like I don't know the answer. But how do you feel about it? Do you feel like, at least for you, not speaking for a group of people, but for you, do you feel like you were always gay or always had same-sex attraction, or do you feel like it kind of snuck up on you, and who knows why?
My own personal experience, I don't feel like I was always like born gay, so to speak. It's actually kind of interesting. Looking back, I kind of feel like that I kind of had a hand actually in its development, just based on like some of the experiences that I had like when I was in elementary school, and like choices that I made at the time, so that was kind of a combination of like environmental factors and my choices.
And what are some of those, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so at the time when I was in elementary school, I felt really insecure about my masculinity, and
athletic as I am now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely like not athletic, right? And like
Just kind of a scrawny kid.
Yeah. Recipient of some bullying, teasing kind of things on that point. And so as a result, maybe kind of a reaction to that, I started to like kind of like idolize and obsess about, you know, like muscular guys.
Oh,
right?
interesting. Yeah.
And then, you know, as time went on, puberty came around, whatever, like that kind of developed into like, I find men attractive, you know?
Right, totally.
And so, yeah, it's kind of an interesting way that developed, but it definitely like developed. It wasn't something that was there when I was like younger than that.
Right. That makes total sense. And again, like, I don't think it's the same story for everybody. Like, everybody has completely different experiences, and the truth is, whether you believe you were born one way or another, like, what do you know when you're born? You don't know anything. You know, like, even for myself, like, I assume when I was born, I've just always been heterosexual, have always had that inclination. But the thing is, as a child, you're not really attracted to anybody, right? You don't understand it yet. You're not like, you know, I remember like kindergarten, I had like a little crush on this girl in my class, right? And you know, as I got older, that became more like, I realized why. Like, I realized like, oh, I have a crush on girls because like I like the way they look, you know, and I notice them, and I don't really notice guys. I notice guys, like, for me as a kid, guys were just like, okay, who can be cool to play with? Who can be a friend? You know, who can also have Ninja Turtles, and who can also play Pogs and Slammers with me, you know? And so you could make the argument that I wasn't born heterosexual or homosexual. I was just born, and then I kind of became heterosexual. But again, I don't know. I don't understand the biology. I don't understand the spiritual side of it, if you believe in that kind of stuff. So my point, I guess, is that I don't think that really matters. I just wanted to get your personal experience on it. Yeah. Let's see, I had another question. So I guess the main thing I wanted to know is, why have you made this decision? Like, I kind of know why, but I want to hear it from your voice and kind of have you extrapolate on it. But why have you decided to never act on it? Like, you're 33 years old. That's a lot of years having this intense feeling that you never really act on. And I guess, you know, the definition of act on, like, what does that really mean? But you've never really dated guys. You've never been intimate with guys. What made you make this decision that is not a trivial decision?
So a lot of it earlier on was religious convictions of feeling like, you know, this is wrong, right? It's wrong to like be in a relationship with a guy or whatever, or act on those kind of feelings. I guess that carried through for a long time. A few years back, I was kind of just trying to like understand my experience or whatever, kind of in this exploratory phase, and I was starting to, you know, consider the idea of like, well, you know, what, maybe I'm open to the idea of like dating a guy. I don't know, like, is that actually like morally wrong in some way? You know, like, kind of had that question. I've always been kind of like slow and hesitant about like, you know, switching my mindset about something that like I, you know, have felt so strongly for so long.
Well, you seem like a methodical dude.
Yeah, I'm very good at overthinking a lot of things, and in some ways it's probably kept me out of a lot of trouble, but it's also in some ways been its own like holding me back, from like growing and developing through my own experiences,
Yeah.
because I never let myself like take risks. I'm always very like careful and like, let's not jump in the pool until we're absolutely sure that like it's a good idea to jump in the pool.
Yeah, make sure your snack is fully digested.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're very kind of risk averse.
Yeah, definitely.
And probably even a little like emotionally risk averse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So did it ever come to kind of this tipping point where you were like, man, I feel like I need to make a decision like today ASAP, or I'm gonna kind of go down one path or another? Or was it all?
No.
It was just kind of gradual because you, like you said, you were brought up with those convictions, so you already were formulating the idea that you didn't want to act on it, and then you just kind of held strong, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's been periods of times where I've kind of like, I guess one period in particular, where I was kind of like becoming open to the idea of like exploring that path, but I was definitely like afraid of it at the same time. And then I kind of retreated again for a while, and had some experiences in the meantime that kind of, I guess for me, helped me to see that like what am I trying to say? I don't know. That like I'm still just like not really that interested in that.
Okay.
And like I said, until just in the past week or so, I've had some questions come up and kind of thinking about like, well, what would it be like to be with a man? And that's only a very recent thing that's been starting to come up again,
Yeah. Does it feel for you like an enormous sacrifice, or does it just feel like, this is what I'm deciding to do, and like I'm happy in my decisions? Or does it feel like every day, like, man, like I wish I wasn't burdened with this? Does it feel like a burden?
Sometimes.
And just while you're kind of thinking, like, even for me, like, because I am also religious, and I also, strive to, avoid premarital sexual relations, and like that's a burden for me sometimes. Like that's a huge sacrifice for me. That's something I would love to engage with all the time, all the hours of the day, all the waking hours. I would love to indulge in my kind of carnal desires. I would love to. But like you said, I don't feel in any way oppressed. I just feel like this is the decision I've made for me, and that's the path that I think will make me the happiest. I don't think indulging on your every whim and desire equates to happiness.
Yeah.
And I'm not preaching on the correct way to live, but that for me is the correct way to live.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, in a lot of ways, it's very similar. Like I have a lot of those like strong like desires sometimes, but like you said, I don't feel like acting on all of my like impulses is a great idea for my like happiness and fulfillment in life, right?
Yeah.
And I really feel like if I want like the most fulfillment out of life, then I need like spiritual guidance to find it, right? Because there's too many questions in life, right? Like you can't ever really know like, is this path or is that path going to be lead to my like growth and fulfillment and greatest happiness and joy, like and so that for me is kind of the guiding principles, like my faith in God, like I try to like be close to God and let Him kind of like help me to find what is the way of like greatest fulfillment, and that enters into a lot of my decision making and things, and there's kind of a trust there that I, you know, even if I'm giving up, you know, like things that seem like on the surface like I really want or desire or whatever,
mm-hmm.
that
or even that you deserve.
Yeah, maybe that I deserve. I usually don't resonate a lot with deserving.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't know. That's a different topic. But,
Sure.
but yeah, even if I, you know, I have to give up things that I think I want in the moment, like, I feel like I have this sense of trust that like, that will lead to greater fulfillment in the future, right? Like, I don't know if you're familiar. There's like this psychology experiment that I heard about one time about, like, you know, they had stuck a child in a room with a marshmallow, and they said, you can eat the marshmallow, or if you can wait 10 minutes, we'll come in and you'll get 2 marshmallows.
Yeah.
Right. And some of the kids would eat the marshmallow, and some of the kids could wait and eat 2 marshmallows.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of.
You're trying to get 2 marshmallows.
I'm trying to get the 2 marshmallows,
yeah.
right? Like,
yeah.
let's not just like, you know, give into every like momentary whim right now, because, you know, there might be something better come down the line if I can kind of like hold off. You know?
Yeah, I feel the same way. And for me, like I know I would ultimately be miserable, but I could very easily spend all my days like doing nothing but like watching TV and watching movies and texting people and just being just doing nothing and just like gratifying my desires and be like, to me, to be lazy is appealing to me. It really is. Like, that is a vice of mine. Like, if I had no goals and no guidance, my default would be lazy. You know, like some people's are just workaholics by nature. You put them anywhere, they start working. They do more homework than they should. They ask the teacher for more homework. You know, they're just always trying to overachieve. And for me, like, my default, I would love to just like watch every great movie ever, every great show ever. But I know that I will be incredibly unhappy if that's the focus of my life, you know? And so in a way it's a sacrifice, because I have to tell myself, okay, there are amazing movies and shows that I will just die having not seen. And part of me, like, I love art, I love entertainment, and so that kind of makes me sad, but it's like, that's a tiny sacrifice, you know, for like all the other great things I can do in lieu of just sitting on my butt all day. Yeah. You know what I mean? And maybe that's a weird comparison, but yeah, we all have things like we don't need to give up, but maybe we should. You know, like, is it innately bad for me to like watch Netflix? Probably not. No. But if that becomes my life's work, and you know, maybe you become a movie critic and it is your life's work. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to try to understand your own like passions and desires, and which ones are healthy, and in what portion are they healthy. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, just kind of on that subject, like, usually it's the middle ground, it's the moderation where that's the healthiest, right? It's the extremes where, you know, like in my experience, I run into trouble, right? Too much of anything is a bad thing.
Right. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Even too much work. Like, there's plenty of people, their whole focus is work, and they neglect their families. They neglect their mental health. They neglect their spirituality. Like, and there are people that their only focus is spirituality, and they become zealots, they become fundamentalists, they become, you know, radicals. And so, yeah, I think moderation is extremely important, but it's kind of a lifelong journey to kind of figure out that balance.
What
I
is
think.
the balance? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's always changing, you know, as, you know, something happens in your life, you become more spiritual, but then maybe work is less important, or maybe your relationships become less important. And so you're always trying to reconfigure these things, I think, at least for me. I read this quote a couple months ago. It was really cool, and I will for sure butcher it, but it was this artist, this painter, and he said, he's like, at age 40, he's like, I've only now just started to really understand myself, but he said, but only vague notions of who I am. like at 40, you know, he's like, I'm still like, I'm barely starting to understand myself, but only vaguely.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of a cool thought, because I think sometimes we think like, man, like I'm graduated college, or I'm in my 30s or whatever, or I'm married now, or I have kids now, like I have an adult job now, like I should have things figured out, and I just don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's not, to me, it's not realistic. Like maybe you should have figured out like how to have a savings account by a certain age, or like how to pay taxes. But even if you don't, like you got plenty of time to figure it out, you know?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if they like taught those things like in a class in high school? How to pay your taxes, how to write a check.
That would be infinitely more important than chemistry, unless you're going to become a chemist. I'm sure you're much more familiar with chemistry than I am and your line of work. But yeah, I was talking to a girl yesterday, and I was asking her what she was doing. She's like, I'm literally trying to figure out like the atomic number. I'm trying to memorize the atomic number for all these elements. And I was like, oh yeah, that's come in really handy for me. Like people always ask me, hey, what's the atomic number of boron? And I said that example, and then she like spouted out what the atomic number of boron was. But I'm like, dude, what would be infinitely more useful is some life skills type classes in high school. Even in college, because there's a lot of things you would learn when you're 15 or 16 that would just fly right outside the other side of your brain.
Yeah, it's like not relevant yet. Right.
But to have an intro to those things in college would be amazing. Like, I still have yet to use sine or cosine in my everyday life. And you probably do. You're a physicist.
I do. I do a lot.
You use a lot of mathematics, so you probably actually see the value in it. I see no value in it.
Yeah.
No, I see that there is value, but it's not for me. Like, I'm glad other people can do it. And should do it. But it's like, I just feel like, you know, just kind of, I feel like some of these classes were, the only thing they taught me was how to suffer. You know? And I have a whole life to learn how to suffer.
Yeah.
I don't need to do it with calculus.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure it's a complex thing trying to figure out, like, you know, what kind of education should everybody have. Like, I was just thinking that it'd be cool if we had some kind of a, like, I want to call it a just-in-time model, where like the things that you're learning are things that are like actually relevant to that phase of your life,
right?
You know, and like the direction that you're going, you know,
right?
And I think now we're getting to education topics. I think there is, you know, value in like a general education. You know, I've heard, you know, discussion of that, and I think there's good things about that, because then, you know, when people talk about, I don't know, the war in Afghanistan, you know roughly where Afghanistan is, right? So
and you know what war is.
You know what war is, yeah. But yeah.
Well, Ben, thanks for coming on. I had a couple people, like I said, I did an Instagram poll and asked if there was any questions people wanted me to ask, or topics people wanted me to broach with you. And somebody asked me, they said, how do you feel about all this? How do you feel about somebody having same-sex attraction and not acting on it, and being, choosing maybe choosing faithfulness to a religion or to God instead of that feeling? And to me, my answer is, it's more nuanced than I'm gonna get into, but really it's my main statement is that how I feel about it doesn't really matter. It just doesn't. And I don't have an agenda one way or another. I have what I believe and what I think. And it doesn't really affect my relationships with people. Whether I think most people or a lot of people were born with it or not, or whether, what my idea of their place is in a church environment or in Christianity. I don't know, it just doesn't really matter, because those things that make up a person don't really change how I feel about them, right? What changes how I feel about somebody is more their character, and the way that they intake information and then spew it out. Because like we were talking about, I don't really resonate with the very vocal crowd that seem to have an agenda. And whether the agenda I agree with or disagree is not really the point. I'm just not, I don't know, I like to deal with people that don't seem to always have an agenda. And I feel the same way about politics. And it's not that I'm like, anti-politics. I think there should be politics, just like I believe in a lot of cases there should be certain agendas that are explored and debated and whatnot. But that's not my realm. Like, I don't want to sit and argue what I believe in or defend what I believe in. I just believe in what I believe in.
Yeah.
So that's me. I have, for being in the community I'm in, I don't have a lot of gay friends, but that's mostly because of the community I'm in. There's not, an overwhelming number of them. I do have a close friend who I've been friends with for years. I went on a trip to Europe with him, who's gay, who has a boyfriend who, practices that lifestyle. But yeah, I don't know that. I think if somebody wants to know my opinions on every single thing, I can kind of opine what I think, but I don't, I'm trying to be open to the fact that I believe certain things, but that doesn't mean they're right. I have my thoughts, I have my philosophies, my opinions, just like everybody else, but I think it's important to be open-minded that, okay, I view the world this way, and this is the way I would like it to be, or this is what I think it should be, but I might be wrong. I think that's a healthy way to look at things. So
yeah,
I might have just successfully ran around that question, but that's,
kind of some thoughts I had as you were talking about that. I just thinking about, like, for myself, like, the one thing that I feel like I want from others, and conversely, that, because that's what I want to try and give to others, is just space. Space to, like, come to your own conclusions and, like, have your own experiences, space to be right, to be wrong, and, like, to make your own mistakes or whatever. And like, to me, like, that's the thing in like, all the things that I've, like, dealt with or experienced in my life, different kinds of struggles or whatever, like, that's the thing that I felt like has been the most helpful every time, is like when others around me are, like, giving me space to, like, to make my own choices and to experience things for myself and to decide for myself, and not have somebody else tell me, like, this is the answer, this is how it should be, right? Like, Well,
that's cool, Ben. I really, I don't want to make you out to sound like you're like this brave martyr or whatever, but I think it is brave to live a certain way that is maybe not in concert with a lot of people around you, that think you should live a different way or don't understand the way you're living, or like you said, maybe don't give you that space. So yeah, I do think it is brave, and I applaud you for being willing to talk about it so openly, especially you know, with your girlfriend and stuff. That stuff can all be very sensitive, and so it's cool that you're talking about it. And to me, this is the agenda I want to promote, is just open discussion.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of people in religious communities, in the Christian world, in the LDS faith, and whatever faith you prescribe to, the hard part is, for so many years, for whatever reason, right or wrong, it's been very taboo, and it's been very hush-hush, and it's been very just difficult to talk about. And I think if we've learned anything over the past few years with the political climate, with all the social movements, is that discussion is a good thing, you know, and whether people are disagreeing or agreeing, it's important to get people's thoughts out there, and it's important for people to feel like, okay, I can talk about whatever it is I'm going through, because there's no chance that nobody else is feeling this. You know, there's so many people in the world, there's no chance that you are the only person that feels a specific way. You know, even though it feels like you're like deeply alone at times, it's like, if you're willing to be vulnerable and open up about this stuff, it is brave, and I think it can help people.
I mean, let's talk about it. Let's hear people's experiences, right? What's your story? What have you been through, right?
Yeah, and I thought it was cool that you, on your Facebook post when you came out, you basically said that. You're like, if anybody wants to talk to me and has any questions, just let me know. You know, and I think people in the past feel uncomfortable because they're like, well, man, like, I want to ask, like, I don't know, do you like making out with guys? But they feel uncomfortable. They feel like they shouldn't ask, or it's like offensive. And it's like, to me, everyone's so afraid of being offensive, but I'm like, I'd rather err on the side of, like, let me maybe be a little offensive, but at least we're talking, and at least there's not like awkwardness and like just things unsaid between us. Like, I'd much rather have that conversation that's difficult, and maybe you don't like how I phrased something, you know, because you're like, well, I don't like being called gay, or I don't like being part of the LGBTQ community, I don't like this or that. But it's like, okay, well, that's not really what I meant. I'm just trying to ask questions. You know, I think too many people, they don't know how to phrase things. They don't know how to say, like, okay, Ben, like, you came out, but I just want to ask you, like, how does that freaking work? You know? And not everybody has a podcast and will invite you on to discuss it, you know? So that's, you know, that's my fortune. If I'm that curious, I just have people on the show.
There you go.
But yeah, I think it's cool that you're so open, and I think everybody should strive to be a little more vulnerable and less afraid of offending people. Like, people are so afraid these days of offending people, and it's like, just ask your questions. If you phrase it wrong, you know, maybe start with, hey, I'm sorry if this comes across wrong, or if I, like, you know, I don't know, say the wrong freaking pronoun. I don't know. But I'm curious, and I want to know, and I'd rather ask than not ask. So I think that's how it should be.
Like, just ask the question, right? There's nothing wrong with, like, being, I guess, like, inexperienced, right? Just like not knowing, right? And like, there's no way that you're gonna, like, figure out, like, you know, the right questions to ask until you ask the questions that you already have, right? Like, start where you're at, like, and you know, I think it is easy to be, like, afraid about, like, you know, bringing up the topic, because I don't know, I guess my experience is, like, a lot of people do tend to react very sensitively. But yeah, for me, like, I just want you to ask the questions, you know, like let's talk about it. Like I want to hear your questions. Like for me, there are no bad questions, there are no wrong questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't hurt me with a question.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, if I hear something in your question that like you know, kind of rubs me in a weird way, like I'll let you know, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
like I'm here to help you learn, right?
Yeah.
As much as anything.
Right. And I think on the other side of things, I think a lot of people should try to not try to not be offended. Have being offended be your last resort. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sometimes somebody says something so heinous, so out of pocket, it's going to offend you,
Mm-hmm.
and it probably should. But I think some people almost want to be offended. They're looking for reasons to be hurt, or to be victimized, or to be like, oh, you can't say that, you shouldn't say that, like that's the wrong way to phrase that. It's like, okay, I can understand being offended is a completely like viable emotion,
Mm-hmm.
but it shouldn't be your default, like I'm looking to be offended. And I
Yeah.
think some people have that attitude, and I'm not sure that they're even aware of it. It's just been kind of indoctrinated in the culture a little bit. Like people think that's like just what you should do. Like
Mm-hmm.
if something rubs you the wrong way, you should be offended.
Yeah, and that's kind of tying it back to something we talked about earlier. That's a principle that's been really helpful to me, like in, you know, just in interacting with people in general, is like giving people the right to be wrong,
Yeah.
right? And like, you know, kind of taking a step back from like that immediate gut reaction of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like you just said that, or that you believe that, or whatever. But like just like letting people like be wrong, and like, you know, it's like offering them the grace to like say, you know, to speak up and say kindly, like, hey, like that's rubbing me the wrong way, you know, or like and not just immediately like jumping down their throat for it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love the use of the word grace there. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, you're a giant among men. You're a good man, and my favorite physicist. I'm being
how many other physicists do you know?
That's private. I don't want to get into it, but
Okay.
you're definitely up there.
I'm glad.
Okay, well, thanks for listening, guys. You know, feel free to share this podcast with your friends and your family and people that will be offended. Okay, we'll talk to you later. All right, my man. We did it.
We did it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
What do you think?
It was a cool deal.
Yeah,
Good questions.
thanks. I was hoping it wouldn't be too intrusive, but you volunteered, so